When farming requires armed escorts, the collapse of rural security in Nigeria. There was a time in Nigeria when the farm represented peace, a place of sweat, a place of hope, a place where a man planted food with dignity and harvested survival. But today, in parts of Nigeria, the farm has become a battlefield. Imagine the scene: a farmer in Edo State wake up before sunrise, not just to prepare seedlings or organize laborers, but to organize security as well. Before hoes touch the soil, before workers step into the farmland, armed vigilantes arrive first. Those who they are defending a war zone, not police securing a bank, or local vigilantes protecting farmers from kidnappers. Think about that for a moment. In Nigeria today, a man cannot safely cultivate his own land without armed protection. And this was not even a poor farmer. This was a wealthy farmer who could afford laborers and private security. But here is the frightening question nobody wants to ask. What happens to the peasant farmer who cannot afford vigilantes? What happens to the widow farming cassava on 2 acres of land? What happens to the old man cultivating yam in a remote village? What happens to thousands of rural Nigerians who depend entirely on farming for survival? Who protects them? Or have we silently accepted that farming in Nigeria is now a dangerous profession? Because this is no longer just a security issue, this is a food crisis, an economic crisis, a national stability crisis, and perhaps most dangerously, a moral crisis. Across many parts of Nigeria, stories of farmers being kidnapped, attacked, or driven away from their farmland have become disturbingly common. Insecurity has crept into forests, villages, and farmland. The people who feed the nation are increasingly becoming targets. Farmers now cultivate risk before rainfall. Families negotiate fear before planting season. Some communities reportedly avoid going deep into fertile land because they fear adoption. And when farmers stop farming, food disappears, the prices rise, the hunger spread, the frustration spread. This is how insecurity enters the kitchen of every Nigerian family. The average urban resident may think insecurity in rural areas is far away. Insecurity in rural areas is far away until they enter the market and discover that tomatoes have become luxury items. Until pepper prices double, until garri becomes expensive, until rice becomes unaffordable. Food inflation does not begin in supermarkets. It begins in abandoned farms. It begins in villages where farmers are too afraid to plant. It begins when criminals gain more control over rural spaces than the state itself. And that is the bigger question Nigeria must confront. Is the government gradually losing control of rural security? Because when citizens start hiring vigilantes to assess their own farms, something fundamental has broken down. Security is supposed to be a public service, not a private luxury for the rich. But what we are witnessing is the dangerous privatization of survival. The wealthy can hire escorts, the poor can only pray. And that creates 2 Nigerians. One Nigeria where people can buy protection, another Nigeria where citizens are abandoned to fear. Imagine the psychological trauma. A farmer wakes up every morning wondering whether he will return alive. The laborer enters farmland knowing kidnappers will be watching from nearby bushes. Parents send their children to farms with silent anxiety. This is not normal. This is not sustainable. And yet, many rural communities feel forgotten. Listen carefully to the kinds of things farmers now say. We no longer fear droughts as much as we fear our men. But this, sometimes, the crop are ready, but people are afraid to harvest. That sentence alone should disturb every policymaker in Nigeria. People are afraid to harvest food. What kind of nation reaches that point? Now let us connect the dots. Nigeria is already battling inflation. The naira has weakened. Transportation costs are rising. Fuel prices on high side. Millions are struggling with the cost of living. Now add rural insecurity to that equation. The result is catastrophic. Because agriculture is not just another sector in Nigeria, it is survival. Millions depend directly or indirectly on farming for income, food, transportation, processing, and trade. Once insecurity disrupts agriculture consistently, The consequences spread everywhere: markets, families, businesses, schools, even national security itself. History has shown repeatedly that hunger can destabilize societies. A hungry population becomes angry, an angry population becomes desperate, and desperation creates instability. This is why the issue goes far beyond one farmer in Edo State. That story is symbolic. It represents a terrifying transformation happening quietly across Nigeria, a country where citizens increasingly fend for themselves, a country where villagers rely on local vigilantes because confidence in state protection is weakening, a country where vital land exists but fear prevents cultivation. And here is the tragedy. Nigeria has enormous agricultural potential, vast land, young population, favorable climate in many regions. Yet, insecurity continues to choke productivity. What is the point of fertile soil if farmers cannot safely access it? What is the point of agricultural policies if the roads to farms are controlled by fear? What is the point of preaching food sufficiency while farmers are running for their lives? At some point, the country must decide whether rural security is truly a national priority or merely another talking point in political speeches. Because every abandoned farm today may become a hunger crisis tomorrow. Every kidnapped farmer weakens national food security. Every community abandoned to fear pushes Nigeria closer to economic instability. This conversation must move beyond politics. This is about survival. The farmer in Edo State who hire vigilantes may have found temporary protection, but the deeper issue remains unresolved. A nation where farmers require armed escort to plant food is a nation facing a dangerous internal collapse. And if Nigeria cannot guarantee safety in the rural heartlands, then the future of food stability and economic recovery itself may be at risk. The question now is no longer whether insecurity exists. The real question is, how much longer can Nigeria survive like this before the consequences becomes irreversible? This is the moment Nigerians must stop treating rural insecurity as somebody else's problem. Government at every level must understand that protecting farmers is not charity, it is national survival. Security presence must return to rural communities. Intelligence gathering must improve. Farm roads, the farming corridors must be secured. Kidnappers and armed gangs terrorizing villages must face swift justice. But beyond government, society itself must wake up. Because the farmer risking his life in the remote village is feeding the entire nation. If farmers abandon their land out of fear, no city will escape the consequences. Not Lagos, not Abuja, not Port Harcourt, not even Edo State. Food scarcity will reach every home. Nigeria cannot claim to pursue economic recovery while the people producing food are trapped between poverty and bullets. This is not just a security emergency, it is a warning sign. A warning that a nation that cannot protect its farmers may eventually struggle to feed its people. And so the question every Nigerian must ask tonight is simple. If those who feed the country are no longer safe, who will feed the country tomorrow? I rest my case. You're to join my next video. Thank you.